It is 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. I think you'll enjoy this. Now a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, "Your servant, my husband, is dead. You know that your servant feared the Lord, Adonai. Now the creditor has come to take my two children to be his slaves. What should I do for you?" Elisha asked her, "Tell me, what do you have in the house?" She replied, "Your handmaid has nothing in the house except a jar of oil." Well, she's flat out broke. Her husband is dead. She's in debt to her husband was in debt. Now he's dead. They're going to take her two children. Then he said, "Go, borrow for yourselves vessels from all your neighbors. Empty jars, not just a few." Now, what do empty jars represent? This whole parable, this whole story, it's real, it's true, it's not a parable. But if you look at it, what are jars? According to Jesus, they represent mankind. He is the potter, we are the clay vessels. He said, "Go get a bunch of empty vessels. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and behind your sons. And pour into those vessels, setting aside what is full." So she's pouring this little bit of oil into these empty vessels that represent man. What does oil represent? The Holy Spirit. And she keeps getting full vessels, and they bring her another vessel. Her sons bring her another vessel, and she keeps filling it. So she left him and shut the door behind her and behind her sons. They kept bringing the vessels to her, and she kept pouring. It just never quit. When the vessels were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another." But he said to her, "There isn't another vessel." So the oil stopped pouring. Now her sons had collected all the empty vessels in this whole city, and she filled them. Now she's got enough to sell and keep some for herself for the rest of her life. And what is the picture of this? This is revivals and why they cease and why they fail. Because you take an empty vessel, being a man without God, and you bring those empty vessels into the revival, and you pour into them the Holy Spirit. And now all of a sudden you're creating what Jesus said is my interest when he talks about the 5, 2, and 1 talents. He said, "Wouldn't you have brought in, given it to the investors and they would have brought me interest?" The interest is people. God doesn't need money. He wants people into the kingdom. This is a representation of a revival, bringing in empty vessels, people that don't know Jesus. And then through the revival, the Holy Spirit is filling them with himself so that they are prepared. Now, what happens when people stop bringing in empty vessels into revivals? The oil stops pouring. The Holy Spirit says, "I'm no longer necessary here." He moves on. Why do you think Brownsville died? They argued about who was doing the greater miracles. Because it became about the people, not about the Holy Spirit. Why do you think Toronto died? Why do you think St. Louis died? Why do you think Azusa Street died? They all lasted about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, 2.5, I think, for Brownsville. But the focus went away from the empty vessels and went towards those who were doing the praying and seeing the miracles, and that's not what it was about. It was about bringing people into the kingdom. God can make a stone witness and pray for healing. But when man quits bringing in what God desires, he moves on. Look at what happened to Elijah. We just had this story in our sermon yesterday at church. God moved on. I just think that's so unique. I think it's important to understand what is the purpose of a revival. Don't just stop and say, okay, it's about healing. No, the healing is the result of bringing in the vessel. The Holy Spirit is active. Boy, try and live in the Holy Spirit without miracles. Try it, because the Holy Spirit is all about miracles. It just comes natural. Okay. Please, you can visit us at streetlightgr.com. Tell your friends /Facebook or YouTube at Streetlight Bible Study 4006. Please be a blessing. We are at the time when we need to bring people into the kingdom and be a blessing to others. Thank you very much for checking in.